The Burrows of Berea is a conversational podcast. We study the Bible and we talk about it. Not all of us are of the same faith, and one of us doesn't actually have a faith.
And that's wonderful. We all love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burrows of Berea.
Side Studies.
Welcome back to another Burrow of Berea's. Welcome back to another Burrow of Bereans side study. It's just me and Andy in the studio today. Andy's on the other side of the glass.
Hello. Safe.
So now you can actually chew, make noises, and I don't care.
Oh, I always do. I just mute my mic.
Yeah, right.
That's what I could never be in the room with you guys. I would just be like holding a completely unnecessary cough in for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because the fact that coughing is not a free option makes me kind of have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've noticed that when I go back and listen to the podcast after you've edited, I'm like, I remember making a lot more noise than that. So you've helped me out.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah. But that's everybody, you know what I mean? And nobody's as bad as me. I would absolutely be the worst if you had to hear all the times I shifted or
yeah.
That's terrible.
Well, you know me, I'm always leaning over and coughing and hacking and drinking and stuff. So you're taking a lot of that stuff out of there. Well, we're back after that last side study we did on Lucifer. You actually got me really intrigued because I had heard that about the Lucifer study, and I sort of went into a little bit more in-depth study because when somebody asks me about something, I like to, try to come back with some answers if I have anything. And then I get a general interest, and then suddenly I become a madman, and I'm studying and studying.
Research is really fun if it's a subject you're interested in. Research is a ton of fun, actually. So
yeah, and so I actually stumbled upon something that was quite shocking, and it's actually changing my beliefs a little bit, which is good. That's the part of being a Berean, is to study to see if these things are so. And if they're not, then I like to change my beliefs versus changing everything around me to make it fit my narrative, right?
Well, that puts you in a very small percentage of the human population.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just something that it's always been the way that I am. I just want to I want to continuously learn, and if it shapes who I am, then great. And I've got this clip that I want to play. It is we are going back to the origins of Satan, but we're going to be doing continuing on in the resurrection in our regular upcoming podcasts, and I'm going to be doing a juxtaposition between the Ku Klux Klan and the Civil Rights Movement. And it's kind of odd because both groups were using the Bible as their background for what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, there's been a lot of I don't know about a lot of that, but that's definitely a thing you see where.
Yes. Yeah. And I got a book when I went on my honeymoon. I was down in Sanibel Island. I went to this cool little place called Gene's Books, and man, this place is awesome. It's there's 3 tiny little beach houses, and when you walk in, it's wall to wall books. I'm talking they've got Scandinavian mystery.
Wow.
Oh, it's amazing. And I was like, really? And in this little place here? And the lady, there was one lady that was working there, and she was like, yeah, anything you need here, here, here. And they had this little clearance section where you could get amazing books for $1. And, Barnes & Noble and those big chains, they really killed out those little bookstores, which made them so great.
Oh, and those little bookstores are just fun because those like what you're describing, that they have so much character. And they often did. They were often old houses or, crazy weird corners of retail spaces that were otherwise a little difficult to occupy.
Mm-hmm.
And just filled up with books in ways that always made them very interesting.
Yeah. And I came across this book. It said Bearing the Cross, and I pulled it out, and it was on Martin Luther King, and I knew I was going to be doing this study on him. And so I thought, well, instead of just doing the easy way out, and just doing some YouTube and, reading on Wikipedia and all that, I decided to get this pretty large compendium based on his life. And as I've been reading it, I've been fascinated that, he was a 4th generation minister, He graduated high school at the age of like 15 or 16 years
Oh,
old.
really? Didn't know that.
He went to Morehouse College, but while he was there testing for the college, they said he really only had about an 8th grade reading level. That just sort of tells you about the education that,
Sure.
African Americans got at that time in Georgia. And he was in Atlanta. His father was an Atlanta minister. But after going to Morehouse College, then he started learning more about, not just the ministry. He started learning more about himself, but he was a very intelligent young man. And as he went through, and he ends up going all the way, and he went to Crover, I believe, for his master's. Then he got his doctorate at Boston University. And then he accepted a pastorship. I can't remember the name of his church, but it was in Montgomery, Alabama, which is when the bus boycott and all that stuff sort of came place. And he was sort of thrust into the forefront of it because he was an eloquent speaker. He was very intelligent. He was young. He had a lot of energy. And they needed somebody that could, that could stand up to a lot of the pressure that was coming. But what you find out in the book, and this book isn't about religion. It's really not. I mean, it's called Bearing the Cross, Autobiography of Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. But he has a differing belief. Like, he didn't believe in the resurrected Christ early on. He didn't believe in certain doctrines. And just throughout the book, the author is just peppering in these little things about him and how his faith grew over time. And, we're talking about a man that if I go to Washington, D.C. and I walk down by the Lincoln Memorial, I can just walk right over a little bit and there's a statue of this man there.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing, and I've listened to a lot of civil rights podcasts recently, and he's sort of a pariah. He's kind of like, he's just out there, and he doesn't necessarily represent the full civil rights movement. You know how things happen, people become famous. But he definitely had a very integral part early on. But I wanted to play this. This is a unique thing. It's about 3 minutes long, but I just want to play this for everybody and listen to Martin Luther King. This is April 3rd, 1968. This is his final speech. And this is how it goes.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
It's fascinating.
Such an iconic voice, too.
It really was, yeah.
Such an iconic voice.
Yeah, he was killed by an assassin's bullet the following day. That was after that speech. And after reading this book and listening to some of his speeches, the one at Lincoln Memorial in 63, free at last, there was something about Martin Luther King that has always sort of stuck with me. If you've ever been in a place where you have to stand up for yourself for whatever that might be, it's hard to do that.
Yeah, it is.
I'm kind of an individual that's driven by fear. I don't want to get beat up and shot and hurt,
Right. Yeah. Not a big fighter.
No, I am certainly a lover and not a fighter, But as I've been studying this topic of Satan, initially it was kind of like, oh, this is fun, we'll look at this. And then not to be lighthearted about Satan, because I know, a lot of believers, they really do. I mean, they worry about demonic forces and the devil and all of these things. I don't. Personally, I don't have that same fear. Some people would say I'm crazy for that, but I've heard people say the devil got in my printer this morning, and I just know it was the devil because I was trying to print something for you to read. And I'm like, dude, you bought a crappy Hewlett Packard. That's
yeah, these things are gonna break.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the devil's getting in a Hewlett Packard.
I think the devil was Hewlett Packard.
A big corporate world,
Yeah, I think everything they did to that printer, they did it, hoping that it would only last a certain amount of time.
Sure, yeah. So I discovered something, Andy, that was really shocking. Okay, I decided to do some research on the origin of Satan because whenever you and I were talking about Lucifer and that woman was talking about fan fiction and all that, it got me intrigued. And so I started looking into it and I found out that she was accurate. There are places in the Old Testament where they talk about stars that are like heavenly beings, some divine beings. And Christ himself is called the bright and morning star. It's important to understand that in the ancient world, that they saw the world as like a 2D kind of a thing. If you can imagine a big circle, and you have in the middle of it, you have the land, like right across the middle, like there's the land. And then above it is the first heaven, which is the sky. And then above it is the second heaven, which is like black fabric with these little shiny stars in it. And that's where the sun and the moon reside, right? And then outside of that into the next heaven is where the God would be,
Huh.
And
yeah,
then
I'm not actually familiar with that.
Yeah, and then if you go below the line, then you have the earth, the land, and then you get down into the deeper part, and that's where Sheol is, and that's where the dead go. Like that, it was really a 2D view at that time. That's what they truly believed, I mean, in 1492, they thought the earth was flat, okay? And that was 1492. That wasn't too long ago. We're talking about 3,000 years prior to the birth of Christ, They had, a basic understanding of the world. So as I started looking into, it's sort of a simplistic approach, but then I thought, well, let's see where Satan came from. Like, where does this start? And so we've always understood it as in the book of Genesis that there was the serpent that talks to Eve and says, sort of deceives her, and then she eats of the fruit and gives it to Adam. And so then they've fallen from grace. They've died spiritually. God kicks them out of the garden. He blocks the garden with these two cherubim angels with flaming swords. They can no longer come in. And then that's kind of all you really hear about. I mean, that's about it. You don't keep hearing about the serpent.
Yeah.
It kind of disappears. In fact, you'll find out in the Hebrew Bible, what we call the Old Testament, but in the Hebrew Bible, there isn't really a Satan necessarily. But I'd taught in a podcast previously about the book of Job, because I had said there was this divine council and God was on the throne. And then it says, and Satan came. And then God said, have you considered my servant Job?
Yeah.
I remember you saying, whenever God rewarded Job after all of those trials, you said bitter sugar. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. He actually got twofold of everything. But I found out that the Satan that is in that book is not the Satan that we know.
Oh, really? Oh,
He's
that's
not. And I was like, wait a minute. Now, wait. Because I thought that he
what
was
does
an
that
evil
even
character.
mean?
Yeah, like if the name is Satan, I'm going to blow your mind. I can't, I blew my mind. So, I mean, I hope it blows yours if you're looking into this. So I'm going to read, and this is the coolest part. It feels so like what is the word? Not synchronous, but like serendipitous. Like I stumbled across something and it's very interesting because it happens when Balaam is riding his donkey, and which is where we got the name from the show here.
Uh-huh.
So in Numbers chapter 22, all right, I'm going to read the first like 23 or 24 verses so that I can give you a backdrop of what's going on here. And it's, guys, it's shocking. I'm just telling you. All right, so Numbers 22. And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Now, what's going on at this point is that Israel is on a war path. They are destroying tribe after tribe after tribe, and they're heading towards getting control of their land. Verse 3, and Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now shall this company lick up all that are round about us as the ox licketh up the grass of the field. So he's like, are they going to bring down here and open up a can of whoop, you know what, on us? Are they going to bring us, are they going to come and get us? And Balak, the son of Zippor, was the king of the Moabites at that time. He sent messengers, therefore, unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. So they've went to this guy named Balaam, and the king of the Moabites, who are afraid of the Israelites, is saying, hey, go talk to their speaker and, tell him, I need to talk to him, okay? Verse 6, come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I wot that he whom thou blessest is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. So is what he's saying is like, I know that whoever you bless is blessed. Balaam is this powerful, like spiritual leader. And he says, if you will come and curse these people, curse the Israelis that are coming in, I know that we'll be able to prevail in battle, because I just know. If you bless them, you're blessed. If you curse, curse. So curse them. So, verse 7, and the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand. Basically, this magic. And they came unto Balaam and spake unto him the words of Balak. And he said unto them, lodge here this night, and I will bring you word again, as the Lord shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. So Balaam's saying, hang out. You guys just lodge here tonight. I'm going to go talk to God and ask him what I should do. He might tell me to curse this people. Then again, he might not. All right. And God came unto Balaam and said, what men are these with thee? And Balaam said unto God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, hath sent unto me, saying, behold, there is a people come out of Egypt, which covereth the face of the earth. Come now, curse me them. Peradventure I shall be able to overcome them and drive them out. And God said unto Balaam, thou shalt not go with them. Thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed. So God's given him the answer.
Yeah.
The answer is no. Okay? Absolutely not. So verse 13, and Balaam rose up in the morning and said unto the princes of Balak, get you into your land, for the Lord refuseth to give me leave to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went unto Balak and said, Balaam refuseth to come with us. So Balaam obeyed what God said. Get out, not going to do it. Verse 15, and Balak sent yet again princes more and more honorable than they. So it's like, I'm going to send in the big dogs.
Yeah, pressure.
I'm sending in the big money, big dogs. We're going to try to convince this guy. And they came to Balaam and said to him, thus saith Balak the son of Zippor, let nothing, I pray thee, hinder thee from coming unto me, for I will promote thee unto very great honor. And I will do whatsoever thou sayest unto me. Come therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people. So, same question, just with a little bit more clout, right? Instead of the vice president coming, the president shows up, kind of a thing, right? Verse 18, and Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, if Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. This sounds like a common thing that a holy man or a prophet would say. Hey, no matter what, you can give me all the silver and gold in the world and I can't do it, right? I'm not going to be able to do it. Now therefore, I pray you, tarry ye also here this night, that I may know what the Lord will say unto me more. So Balaam says, but hang on, just go ahead and stay here.
He might come back.
I'm going to go back and ask him one more time. Maybe
Yeah.
he's got another answer
You know
for
what?
me.
I'll check in the back.
Let me, exactly. And God came unto Balaam at night and said unto him, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. But yet the word which I shall say unto thee, thou shalt do. So in other words, he says, all right, in the morning when you wake up, if these princes come back down and call on you, then you can go. But whatever words I give you, you're going to have to say to them. Okay? That's the goal here. Listen to verse 21. And Balaam rose up in the morning and saddled his ass and went with the princes of Moab.
That's a great verse.
Yeah, that's another one we'll talk about on our future episode. But here it is. They didn't call on him. He just saddled his ass and went with them on his own.
Yeah, I
You
kind of
see?
missed that bit. Yeah.
Right. So he didn't actually go. So verse 22, here's where it is, okay? And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his 2 servants were with him. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And the ass turned aside out of the way, and went into the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. But the angel of the Lord stood in a path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side, and a wall on that side. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself into the wall, and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further, and stood in a narrow place where was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with the staff. Now this is where it gets pretty wild. Verse 28, and the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, what have I done unto thee that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? Imagine your donkey looking up like, why are you smacking me 3 times, you know? And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me. You know, Balaam didn't go like, man, I can't believe it's a talking donkey, right? Like, he didn't say that.
He's in. He's like,
He's like, I'm
like,
sold.
oh, you want to talk about it?
Okay. He was that mad. He didn't even notice that the ass was talking to him. And he says, because thou hast mocked me, I would there were a sword in mine hand, for now would I kill thee. He's like, I wouldn't just smack you around, I'll kill you.
He's angry at that ass.
He is totally angry at that ass. 30, and the ass said unto Balaam, am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And he said, nay.
This is an amazingly well-spoken ass, by the way.
Listen,
I mean, that's better than me.
in the King's English. I mean, this is amazing. Yeah. Well, we're going to go back to the Hebrew. This is where it gets interesting. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. So at this point, when we get to verse 22, the angel of the Lord, because of God's anger being kindled, the angel of the Lord goes to stop Balaam. Okay. Now, have you ever heard of the Strong's Concordance?
No.
Okay, so in biblical study, I can't remember the name of the man. I think it's James Strong. I'm not really sure, but his last name was Strong. He did this amazing compendium of words. He actually sat down, and every single Hebrew word, even down to the word is, every single Greek word, he broke them out and numbered them so that if you didn't know the language, if you wanted to see what that word was from the English to the Hebrew, you could go and find it.
No, just like, yeah, a reference. Like
It's
code,
a great
like
reference.
What's that called when you have like a code break thing?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I found when we get in these podcasts that words escape me, and then I
They
have to
escape
use like
me
80
anyways.
words to describe the one word I'm looking for.
Yep.
It's an exhaustive reference book is what it is. And this man dedicated his life to it. And it's an amazing resource, especially if you want to study. So because I don't know Hebrew.
A cipher. It's a cipher.
A cipher, yes. Because I'm not a Hebrew scholar, because I am not, a Greek scholar, or because I don't know either one of the languages, if I wanted to go back to see what the original languages, said, or I wouldn't know how to do it. This concordance helps you. It helps you find these words and sort of break it out. So, remember what I said. I'm pop quiz, Andy. Whenever God's anger was kindled, who did he send to stop Balaam?
An angel with a flaming sword?
Not a flaming sword, but an angel of the Lord that stood with a sword drawn. The angel of the Lord, okay? So I pulled up the Strong's Concordance, and I wanted to break this down. And when I did, I came across the word adversary. All right?
Okay, the adversary.
Adversary. So it's Hebrew number, if anybody's looking in their concordance at home, it's the Hebrew number 7854. If you click on it, it says it's a transliterated word. Do you remember what transliteration was?
Oh, yeah, it's where you kind of use the sound.
It's like baptizo, and instead of it being, and we just adopted it in the English language as baptist or baptism. That wasn't an English word. So we just used that word and transliterated it. Okay. So this is a transliterated word, Satan. So the angel of the Lord was a Satan.
Huh.
What I discovered, and it's actually in Hebrew, it's pronounced Satan. But anytime you see the word Satan in the Old Testament, there's a definite article of the
Satan.
The Satan. And it's ha-Satan. That's how it's said. This is the first time that the word Satan shows up in the Bible, is in Numbers, the 4th book of the Torah.
Wow.
Satan. Ha-Satan.
So it's like a title. Yeah, it's like a title.
It's actually a function.
A function.
He's
it's
an
a
adversary.
Yeah.
It's really not a name. But you know how they took
I've
Lucifer,
definitely heard of Satan called the adversary as well. Yeah.
Which is, that's the evil one, the adversary, the devil, the accuser. I mean, he's got all kinds of names, right? But in this instance, if you're going to use the word Satan as we know, which is the transliterated word, and you read the Bible and you see that the angel of the Lord acted as the Satan.
Yeah, that does not compute in the way that
it
we
makes
think
you
of
feel
it.
like it's evil. As soon as you hear the word Satan, because Satan is evil and that's it. It's not. The Satan is adversary. That's all. He stood against Balaam to prevent him from going, to stop him. And the donkey was trying to save his life, you know? So the Satan had a sword drawn, ready to kill on behalf of God. So when I started doing more research.
That is fascinating, yes.
Isn't it? I mean, that's exactly what I said. I was like, now, wait. What are you talking about? So there are more. In 1 Samuel 29:4, it says, and the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him, talking about David. Okay? And the princes of the Philistines said unto him, make this fellow return, that he may go again to his place which thou hast appointed him, and let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary, unless he be a Satan.
He'd be one of the Satans.
Now we're talking about King David.
Yeah.
That's the lineage of Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So remember, son of David, son of Abraham. So David, he is acting as a Satan, the Satan against the Philistines.
So, yeah, you're right. It's not even a title. It's a function.
It's literally a function. 2 Samuel. And David said, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah, that ye should this day be adversaries unto me, being the Satans to me? So he would say, being ha-Satan to me is how he would say it.
Oh, wow.
So
that
function.
is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely.
It is, isn't it? Now, I'm going to take us back to Job because I want everyone to understand that my whole life I have believed that this was the devil himself that was walking in the throne room of God because he says, because God asked the question, where have you been? Well, this is fascinating. Just let me turn to this Job chapter 1. So it talks about that there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright and one that feared God and eschewed evil. Let's go to the Common English, shall we? Well, actually, let's stay in the King James because I'm going to drop down to verse number 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? I've read this before.
Yeah.
Now, if it says Satan, with what we know in the English language, and it's a transliterated word, it's automatically evil.
Sure. Yeah, you're going to just take
this is a mistranslation. It's actually a mistranslation in the King James Version of the Bible. And I know that doesn't sound shocking to you, but for somebody who has studied the King James Bible and has fought for the King James Bible forever, it was a little shocking.
Huh.
Lucifer was the same way. I got back to it and I was like, She's 100% right. It's a transliterated word, and it's all from fan fiction.
I love, yeah, it's still hilarious to me, the use of fan fiction in that context.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, no, wait a second. Wait. If you read this story, each time this Hasatan, the adversary, stands, okay? So if I pull up, let's see, this one is going to be Job chapter 1, verse 6. And if you'll give me just a moment, I want to pull that up on my other Bible with my special old concordance, Job 1, 6. And I look at Satan. Let's see what it is. Right here. H7854, Satan. It's the same word.
Huh.
So do your homework, listeners, all you Jackson Jennies. Pull up your concordance and look up that Hebrew number in the Strong's Concordance of H. What was it?
Oh, you just
7854.
They could have rewound it. They have.
They
that
could have,
technique.
yeah. Rewind it. No, H7854. Look up that word.
First off, find the Strong's Concordance, because that's fascinating. A fascinating thing I've never heard of. That is,
You can
really
download
neat.
it free from the Google Play. It's right there, and it's easier. You can actually click. You don't have to
You
flip through the
search,
books.
yeah.
It's just like super quick. Like everything I just
That's
did, I
really
did real
neat.
time.
That's
Yeah.
so neat.
So why did the translators decide to use that word, Satan, the transliterated word, instead
In that place, yeah.
of adversary? Why? Like,
I don't know.
what
I
gave
mean,
them?
are you winding towards an answer, or is that just an open kind
I
of?
don't have an answer. I honestly don't understand. Do you remember when I was talking about systematic theologies and I said how like dispensationalism or premillennialism or amillennialism or this and that, these theologies that are built for us prior to becoming a Christian, whenever they lay out this theology, it's a belief system. And then they take the specific word, the specific Bibles or specific, like if you go into Mormonism, they give you the Book of Mormon.
Sure. Yeah.
And you read the Book of Mormon and that is their scripture. And so you're raised on that. You characterize your life based on those beliefs that you've been given, right? But there are a whole lot of different sects that use the same 66 book Bible, but they split. There's so many different factions. However, the King James Version of the Bible, as it was translated, they already had specific beliefs in mind anyway. And so when they wrote this Bible, they placed specific words in specific places to help control the narrative.
Huh. Yeah.
Okay.
That only makes sense to me.
It does.
frankly.
Well, of course, if you're trying to upset the Catholic Church and start the Church of England, sure, why not change it and do it the way that you want to, right?
Well, I think anybody that's part of a problem that I have with the Bible is I don't see why anybody printing one of those books doesn't have some axe to grind, and it might not be nefarious. You know what I mean? But they're going to have what they believe, and and what seems self-evident to them, they're going to change it to make it more obvious to the reader. Does that make sense?
Oh,
like
yeah.
they're going to cut the angle that they see. And
Sure. again,
it's not necessarily nefarious, but yeah, people are going to put their twist on stuff. They can't not.
Right. And that, I think that's a turnoff to people if they are involved in a faith, like if they discover it about themselves, rather than taking a step back and saying, maybe I was just in this cult, and then they just give up religion altogether. I'm just sick of it. I don't want, I'm done with it.
It's just human to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, there's no way around it. It's just how people be.
It's how people be. And it's like, you and I, okay, I come from this crazy upbringing, where I have drugs and alcohol, but the Bible, and then I have atheism and lots of love and affection, simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's
These seeming contradictions.
yeah. And, we've talked about the love of God and where I go and how I got, and we talked about maturing and becoming our age and, all of those things. I can't deny the experiences that I've had as a man personally. And from my belief in God and what I've done over the course of my life, I didn't just make some irrational decision one day. Like this was a conscious decision that I made. And So, but I still have atheist family members,
Yeah.
that I talk to, and let me be frank. I love you, and I love my family. And it does not change my feelings or emotions about people. There are some sects that would disagree with that. They would say, "Don't even eat with them."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My parents have been like sort of going to Jehovah's churches for years, but won't actually do the what's it called? I don't know. Won't actually convert fully into the church because
Sure.
then they wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to talk to me technically, which is just wild.
Isn't that crazy?
wild, man? It's
Yeah.
wild.
Every one of these sects, what they do is they preach and talk about the love of God, but they actually don't exercise that love. It's the craziest thing. I want these people to do a paradigm shift. Like, just stop for a second. I'm going to give you, I'm not going to say the man's name. Okay. But I always usually bring some sort of a personal testimony or something.
Mm-hmm.
So in my younger days in my work, by trade, I'm a tool maker. Okay. I went to school for machining and tool making. And then that's what I was for years and years.
And they were like, "You're really good at this. Why don't you go into sales?" It's
Yeah.
funny how careers work.
It
right?
is weird. Yeah. Like I went
man.
from tool making for years, and then I got out of tool making and I taught myself how to design with 3D modeling software. And so then I get put into this engineering group, and then I become the leader of the engineering group, and I am not an engineer. And my brother Colin will absolutely tell you that I am not an engineer because he has a degree and I don't.
Yeah.
And he's right, by the way. And I love Colin. He's so friggin' smart. It's ridiculous. But, he told me one. He's like, "You're not an engineer. Just admit it." It's like, "You're right. I'm just a guy that knows how to use software."
Yeah.
So, and then they put me into sales and all that. And then I started my own company, and now I own a machine shop, and we do all kinds of things, and whatever. In my earliest time, when I first started, I had a boss who was he was trying to teach me, how to do the basics in this. I didn't have any schooling. I got hired off the street as a favor, to my father-in-law. And so I got this opportunity, and I'm trying to make the best of it. I've got this young wife and a young baby on the way, and I'm like, I got to make it,
Yeah.
And so I get this boss, and he's trying to teach me things, and I actually start to excel. I'm doing pretty well at it, and I'm like, hey, I might have actually found my thing. Like, I can actually do this, And so I start learning more and more and more, and I start going to school, and I start learning more and more and more, and I'm really beginning to excel, And I was just having a conversation with my boss one day, and I said to him, I could see myself having your job someday.
Yeah. Oh, I think you told this
Did
story.
I tell this story?
I think you did. I mean, in a different manner, I think.
No,
trying
this was
to get a different point.
That was a different guy.
Oh,
I
really?
think I was talking about
So did you
David
just
Allen, and he
run
said,
around-
"You can't take my job."
So you just run around
Telling everybody.
people.
Did I tell you I was clueless in my younger days?
All right, anyway,
No, but-
sorry.
No,
Okay.
the first one with David Allen, I had said he was training me and teaching me everything that he knew. And because of my first boss, who I'm getting ready to tell you about, that experience told me to ask him, "Why are you showing me so many things and being kind? Aren't you afraid I'm going to take your job?" And he was like,
"Okay, that's right. It
Yeah,
was a
you
different
can't-
context.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't take my job. God gives me the job." That's what he says.
Yeah.
So my first boss tells me, "You're never going to get my job. In fact, I'm going to make sure you're not going to get my job."
Ugh,
And he made my
people.
life like a living hell for like 2 years, to the point that I had a dream. Like, I was at the shop outside. I shimmied up a pine tree about 30 feet. I got a bow and arrow, which I have never shot in my life, and I shot him in the back and killed him in my dream.
Wow.
I woke up in a puddle of sweat, like, for real. Like, I don't dream and I don't wake up in puddles of sweat. I actually did. And I was like, I just told my wife, I was like, I gotta quit my job. Like, this is it. Like,
that's yeah.
this is affecting me mentally. So you take that, and he was a very hardcore, like, Christian, like, very hardcore. And this was prior to me to becoming converted, but it was really a turnoff to me. Like, he was so hardcore. Like, if this person had a child out of wedlock, then, they were full of hell and they needed to do this and that, it was just a big turnoff. But as I got more and more religious, I started seeing more and more people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, okay, I don't want to be them. But at the same time,
A religion seems to me to entirely fail to be an indicator of any sort of virtue. It doesn't mean you're less virtuous than anybody else, but as far as I can tell, it also doesn't mean you're more virtuous than anybody else.
right. Yeah, exactly. And so fast forward, 20 years. Fast forward 20 years, and I have this individual that comes to me, and he says that he needs a job, and he informs me that he has 3 daughters, 2 of which are having children out of wedlock right now. And there's 2 sides of me. I've told you this
That's
before.
the same guy.
Same guy.
Lord.
So there's 2 sides to me. There's a side of me that says,
Lord.
revenge.
right.
And I'm like,
How could you not think that? If that guy made you that unhappy,
right.
how do you not have that thought?
Yeah, like
that's
you just want to say
human.
something like, how are you holding up your head at church, you sinning bastard?
Yeah.
You know, like, ah!
Yeah.
But because of all of the experiences I've had in my life and where I am,
You're
you know,
far enough away from it, and you came out of it okay, which makes it a lot easier to be nice in the end.
Sure.
When you come out of it, things work out for you.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's
yeah.
because I've just matured in my age, but I've studied so much
Sure.
on being kind and loving, you know, that I saw it for what it was. And, you know,
Yeah, and I'm sure this whole thing isn't lost on him either. There's no way that's lost on him.
I don't know. I don't know. You'd be
there's no-
surprised at,
well,
all
I
the
guess
people
that's
that
true.
are.
Some people can be pretty dense, can't they?
Yeah. Hey, there are some crazy religious people that would just like kick their daughters out. Just like you said, your parents, like they didn't fully convert because they wouldn't be able to talk to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty hardcore, you know, it's pretty hardcore. But when it comes to, I'm going to reel this back to Satan. When it comes to the belief, I've said this before, that it's a very dualist thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, good, evil, black, white, God, Satan. But to find that out, that there's only, I think, 29 references of Hasatan in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
29.
And
yeah.
they're all the Satan.
The Satan.
Or the adversary mostly,
That's right,
suspect in the
adversary.
English
But
version.
in Hebrew, when they said it was Hasatan, and that there was only
Uh-huh.
29 times in the Old Testament.
Huh. And it's like you see, one of them was one of David's.
One of them was David.
David.
Yeah, David himself,
See,
King
that's-
David.
That's pretty wild.
He was the Satan in the story. And then there was an angel of the Lord who was the Satan
Acting
as well.
as the Satan or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
So it's important to understand that it was a function.
Ha.
But here's where it gets weird. This is where it gets weird. When the New Testament comes out, it's like, bam, like right in your face, right? Jesus, here he is.
Uh-huh.
He's born. Mark says he's the Son of God.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. It's about this, like, our need for like a dialectical narrative sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but funny enough, it's that not only was that need, but do you remember me talking about the pseudepigrapha?
Mm-hmm.
Which I need to redefine that, okay? It's not false writing. It is, but it's falsely ascribed writing. It's like falsely titled. So if somebody wrote this book, then they would put a name on it. Kind of like I said, the Gospel of John was actually written by Lazarus, but they had to legitimize the book, so they put the apostles' name on it. So the same with this, like the Book of Enoch is a pseudepigraphal writing. Enoch was the only person that walked with God and was taken up and never died, you know, except for Elijah, but Enoch anyway. And so this Book of Enoch sort of legitimizes it, and that, oh, well, if he was up there, then he would know all the things going on in heaven and going on, you know. So this falsely ascribed writing, well, during that intertestamental period, what they call Second Temple literature or pseudepigrapha, falsely ascribed writings, the develop of demonic power, evil rulers in the spiritual realms, and the complete and utter ruler of the adversary himself, who we gave the name Satan, like the absolute adversary, develops over this time in that 400-year period from Malachi, the end of the Old Testament, until the book of Mark and Matthew arrive 400 years later. So this is where the development of this adversary begins, the evil one,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And there are books written in the pseudepigrapha that sort of tell you how this happens, like legitimately how it happens. And then when the New Testament hits, boom. So it says Jesus goes up to John the Baptist. He gets baptized. He gets up out of the water. The skies open up. God the Father says, "This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased." And then it says, and straight away Jesus went into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil.
Huh.
It's like, boom, here's this guy. Wow. You know, and so now you've got this evil, like you said, dialectical,
Yeah.
diabolical character
Yeah.
opposite of the Holy One. And part of his mission is actually defeating the dark forces that are actually going against God. Okay? So it's actually, dude, it's fascinating. Like, it is fascinating. But it sort of changed my philosophy a little bit. It's actually changed my philosophy.
So when we get up to the New Testament, who's the do you know anything about that devil described there when he goes into the wilderness? Like,
Yeah, so you learn more about him. He is Beelzebub. He's he's like the ruler of all dark gods, dark demons.
see, that sounds so Old Testament to me.
It does, because it is.
Yeah.
Because in Genesis chapter 10, back in the Old Testament, man had gathered around and built this tower called the Tower of Babel. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah.
So they build it up. It's like they're going to build it to the top of to the heights, the highest heights, the heavens. But then God looks down and says, let's go down and frustrate the man and stop him from doing this. And so he takes and they split the people up by language, like strikes them. They change their language and scatters them across the earth so that they can't work together anymore. Then he establishes 70 nations and he puts a ruler over each one. Well, unbelievably, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, who is a well-known scholar in the Old Testament, Bible, the canon, he is actually saying that those 70 rulers aren't humans, that they're actually demigods that God created.
Well, that's interesting.
So,
although not entirely mind-blowing, because if you like look at just like straight up Catholicism a little bit, God, there are some wild characters in there that just kind of get left out. Like post-Lutheran, is that the right way to say that? Stuff that just kind of get left behind. But the devils and the characters and the legend, a lot of which I suppose is fan fiction, but that the Catholics seem to take very seriously, or at least fairly seriously. It's wild stuff,
Sure. I mean, Jesus himself speaks and says, after he sends out 70 disciples. I never picked up on this before.
So I wonder if that's just a coinky dink, or
no, it's not a coincidence. There are 70 rulers, right, over 70 nations, and Jesus sends out 70 disciples, and when they come back, he gives them the power to cast out demons, it says. Okay, so he sends them out, and when they come back, they're excited, and they're like, the demons were doing what we were saying, and Jesus says, I saw Satan fall from heaven. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like, when we read the scriptures, a lot of time, like in this modern age, everything is like, how do we apply the Bible? Like, let's apply it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like you have that side of it. But there are so many things in this book that people are not realizing are there.
Yeah.
Like, I saw Satan falling from heaven. And then later on, like in Revelation chapter 12, and then Michael the archangel comes down and he smites the dragon, the old serpent.
Oh, yeah.
The devil, Satan. And he falls from, and then he's taken into the pit. And like Revelation is all this symbology about the satanic forces and the Antichrist and the beast and all of these things are being dealt with. Jesus Christ, or like, his name is Yeshua. I prefer to say that. It's so weird that we would call Jesus Yeshua.
Yeah, anglicized. I don't know. Maybe it was just, I don't know.
Actually, I know how it went. Basically, his name was translated in the Greek, which is Iesus, Jesus. And then when it was translated, the J arrived in around the 14th or 15th century. They put that in there and Jesus came out in English. That's how it happened. And so we call him Jesus, but his true name in Hebrew is Yeshua.
Yeah, it's much more Jewish, more just
which means
typically
Yahweh
Jewish.
saves.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And so if I walk up to them and say, hey, Yeshua saves, they're like, you mean Jesus, man? Like I get it, but
so you'd be saying Yahweh saves?
Yahweh saves. Yeah.
Yeah, if you say Yeshua saves, you're like Yahweh saves.
That's right. Yeshua saves, Yahweh saves. That's right. That's good. But I'm glad you sent me that TikTok. Like, I've never thanked anybody for sending me a TikTok before. But when
you were like, now I have to figure out how to watch this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fascinating where this is, leading. So I'm going to continue the study here, and sort of get you into the New Testament Satan.
Yeah. Very interested to see that keep going.
Yeah, like I'm going to go into the pseudepigrapha, and I'm actually going to pull books that are considered non-canonical, and I'm going to show you the development of this character, who he is from, and the 5 devils that that taught man how to use iron, and the other one taught him how to create jewelry, and the other one was sorcery, and like it's pretty amazing.
That's cool.
And then
interesting for sure. That's
and
very
you
interesting.
also find out that they quote it in the New Testament. They quote those books. And I'm like, how can it not be canonical if these canon books are quoting that book? How come that's not canon?
Yeah.
And then I find out, there actually are sects of churches that use those books that are quoting it.
Oh, yeah, that I kind of know, not which ones, but loosely. That,
Yeah, like the Ethiopian church, like
Yeah.
88 books in the Bible, they use pseudepigraphal writings. They use apocryphal writings.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So I'm going to get into that more and more.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
That's a fun little road.
It is. Yeah. And I feel like when I do this podcast that sometimes, we joke a lot and, we don't get, we're not too serious, but I want to be serious with people too. I do have a faith, and it doesn't change how I feel about Andrew Aaron Bishop at all.
Oh,
I know. Isn't that sweet? You are in trouble, by the way. I used your full name, but
It's true.
good thing you're
I
behind the
didn't even
glass. No, but it's very difficult when you're a Christian. It's like you feel like this need to proselytize people, but it was more out of a point because they tell you to, like, you should, people are dying and are going to hell and you need to do this, you need to do that. And so you feel this sense of guilt on trying to tell someone about Jesus or Yeshua or whatever you want, because you feel the need to, because your preacher has said so. And if you don't do it, you're not acting like a good Christian should. But I also see the benefits of it. And there's a very fine line between proselytizing and sharing.
yeah. Well, I mean, it only makes sense from your perspective, frankly. It only makes sense from your perspective if you think you're doing someone a service that is doing them an enormous good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, it's like do you remember what Cherry said? She said, I never even thought about hell. I never even thought about heaven. She was like, my life was just a wreck.
Yeah.
And I had nowhere to turn. And then suddenly this thing shows up and it gave me hope. And that's what it was for her. And it developed over time more and more. It became, deeper for her. But that's what, for me, it wasn't about heaven and hell either. I just, I felt a lack of love in my life, and somebody told me that God loved me. And I was like, well, who's God? And where do I find him? And does he have any bubble gum? Like as a kid, and then over time, that love, it's still so meaningful to me. But as I've shared, and I'm going to read one last thing, and then I have this awesome joke.
All right.
I really got to bring it here to you. But I want to read this quote that I found. There may come a time when it will be possible for you to humiliate your worst enemy or even to defeat him. But in order to love the enemy, you must not do it. You remember me telling you about my old boss and that opportunity? Okay.
Yeah.
The Greek language has another word for love. It calls it agape. Agape is more than romantic love. Agape is more than friendship. Agape is understanding, redemptive goodwill for all men. Agape is an overflowing love, a spontaneous love, which seeks nothing in return. And theologians would say that it is the love of God operating in the human heart. When you rise to love on this level, you love all men, not because you like them, not because their ways appeal to you, not because they are worthful to you, but you love all men because God loves them. And you rise to the noble heights of loving the person who does the evil deed while hating the deed that the person does. And I think this is what Jesus means when he says, love your enemies. Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, that's nice. That's a great quote.
It is. And he understood through the efforts of nonviolence and through the efforts of love. When he read the Bible, that's what he saw. He didn't see the evil and the meanness and the judgmental part of it. He looked at humanity and he said, white people are not the enemy. They may seem like the enemy, but if God loves them and we're to love our enemy, then there's something else. What I want is for my daughter to be able to walk hand in hand with a little white boy in a peaceful land someday. That's what I want. And he came to the end of his life and he said, I've been to the mountaintop. That's a reference to Moses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moses was on the mountaintop seeing the promised land.
Clear reference.
And he didn't get to the promised land. Moses didn't. Moses died before he got to the promised land. He wasn't allowed to go to the promised land, according to what the Lord said. And neither did Martin Luther King. He didn't get to the promised land either. He was snuffed out way too young. But he never changed his stance. You know, he wanted nonviolence, which had worked in India with Mahatma Gandhi.
Yep.
You know, who was not a Christian. I mean, no, he just used nonviolence.
Hmm.
I believe that, I can't remember, I think it's Donna that had on her truck, Mahatma Gandhi said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
Oh, yeah. That's, yeah, classic quote.
Yeah. So, but for nonviolence, you know, that's what Martin Luther King did. And what I've learned over time, I found that to be true. I found that not only just in mellowing out in my old age, but if I can truly understand that God actually does love these people, stop telling people they're going to hell. You are not their judge. You don't know anything about their life.
Absolutely.
You need to do a paradigm shift. And instead of telling them where they're going, ask them what you can do for them. Be there for them, be helpful, be caring. And when you see an injustice, stand up for someone, you know, and try to do it in a peaceful manner. I mean, that's kind of the idea. Am I becoming a hippie or something?
I think you are. I think you're a hippie, Rick. Everybody, I want you to know that Rick actually came in a tie-dyed shirt and some sort of moccasins today.
Yeah. Truthfully, though, I'm actually wearing this really hot vest. I mean, it's a hot day. Why am I wearing a vest? I wear a vest every day. I don't know why. It's just my thing.
Every day?
I do. I try
Really?
to cover my fat belly.
Yeah.
It's just a way to try to look thin, but it doesn't work. It's like, look at that fat guy wearing a vest.
Look at that. Well, you just hope that everybody just sees the shirt, and since the vest is black, they don't
see the
count that, you know, so it looks like your whole profile is that much thinner.
Exactly,
That
yeah.
must be the.
So as
Now I'm gonna have to, like, every time I see you, I'm gonna be like, "Is Rick in a vest?"
yeah, check him out, man.
I'm gonna. Yeah. Now every time I see you, this is gonna be the first thing you think. Is he wearing a vest today?
Right, yeah. So the joke.
Okay.
All right, so this comes from my wife. She tells me this joke the other day. I've done a little spin on it. So if anybody's been listening to these jokes, get ready. So Forrest Gump dies and goes to heaven, and he sees this angel standing at the gate. It's a big line, and there's 3 other lines over there. Sound familiar?
Oh yes, I've heard
So
that.
I finally found out the name of this angel. It was Larry, the 15th apostle. He's the one. It's not Peter. It's Larry, the 15th apostle. He's standing at the gates, and Forrest goes up to him, and the angel looks at him and says, "You're a very interesting character. It doesn't say that you are a lover of sex or a lover of money or a lover of the drink. You're an interesting individual, but it does say here that you were just a little bit slow. Didn't mean to offend, but that's just how it goes, okay? That's the reality of this. So I'm going to have to ask you 3 questions so I can figure out which level to put you into heaven." And Forrest Gump's like, "Okay." He says, "All right."
That was a pretty good Gump.
Pretty good, huh? So the first question was, how many days of the week start with the letter T? So Forrest sits and he thinks, you know, he sort of sticks his tongue out to the side, you know, he's really thinking hard. And he's like, shucks, that's actually pretty easy. That would be today and tomorrow. So Larry, the 15th apostle, sort of chuckles and he says, "You know, honestly, it's an accurate answer. I don't think you got it, but I'm going to give you the pass. That's good." All right, time for the second question. This one's a little bit harder, so you're going to have to think. How many seconds are there in a year? And it was immediate. Forrest Gump's like, "Oh, that's easier than the first one. 12. So Larry's like, 12? I don't think you understood the question. "Oh, yeah, January 2nd, February 2nd. So Larry laughs a little bit and he's like, "Oh, I got to let you pass on that." We're like, "You got it right." Okay. So, all right.
Not
So
technically wrong.
yeah, exactly. So the third question is by far the hardest. In fact, I don't know very many people that can answer it. So here it goes, Forrest. What is God's first name? And Forrest Gump didn't even miss a beat. And he's like, "Oh, that's even easier. My mama used to sing it to me in the kitchen. And he walks with me and he talks with me." Andy. I thought you'd like that one, Andy.
I
You got
like
the first
all
name of God.
I do. Andy the God.
Andy,
Not me. I
Andy
mean
the
other
17th
one.
apostle.
Yeah.
Andy walks with me. Andy talks with me. So anyway. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, this week. Andy, thanks as always. And next week, we'll have the whole drove of asses back here in the studio.
Nice.
Yeah, very exciting. We do have an episode coming forward where we're going to be taking verses out of context, which are absolutely phenomenal. So let me just give you an example of what that show is going to be like. I sent this to Billy Kimsey the other day. Ezekiel 23:19. Yet she increased her prostitution, remembering the days of her youth when she engaged in prostitution in the land of Egypt. She lusted after their genitals, as large as those of donkeys, and their seminal emission was as strong as that of stallions. We're going to break that one down and study for a while. I don't think so, but I think no one's ever read that to me in church.
Yeah, what are you gonna study out of that? I'd like to see someone. I guess context would be nice. Maybe I'll wait for context.
Well, yeah, we'll take them out of context and we'll laugh, and then I'll break down the context just for fun. But
okay.
Anyway, all right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you next week when we're all back together. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Bye.